Thank you very much, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land and their elders past and present. I feel like now is a really fantastic time in Victoria. There are extraordinary things happening in our startup ecosystem. It's a phenomenally exciting world to be in, and I'm really proud and privileged to be running LaunchVic. It's a role that I took on about 16 weeks ago, and I've met many of you in the room here today, but I really look forward to engaging more as time goes by. I think LaunchVic is something that we all in this room should be incredibly proud and grateful for. You're here because you believe in the startup ecosystem, and it's thanks to Minister Dalidakis and the Victorian government that we've got an organisation that's been funded to the tune of $60 million to help our ecosystem grow. It's been funded in a way that it's been established as an arm's-length company. We're a startup of our own, and over the last few weeks since I've come on board, we've gone through all those wonderful pain points of setting up systems, hiring staff, getting our operations sorted. We know what it is to live and breathe the ecosystem that we're representing, and that's a hugely powerful tool. But what I want to focus on today is how can we use this tool, LaunchVic, to foster, cajole, prod, poke, support, develop, grow our beloved ecosystem. Because I truly believe this ecosystem can be absolutely on the world stage. It can be one of the greatest ecosystems in the world. But it's not just LaunchVic. This is a journey we have to go on together. We can only do this with the support of you. But first of all, let's begin with LaunchVic and what we've done. I think it's fair to say that we've been broadly acting as a funding body for the sector. We've funded conferences, and we're very proud to be here supporting Pause Festival, and congratulations to the team and everything that they have done to get this fabulous festival supported for yet another year. We've invested in 2 rounds of funding, and to date have supported 25 projects. They range from supporting high school students, doing the digital lemonade stand of the 21st century, through to how do we develop more accelerators and co-working spaces. We've got accelerators in our region, and I acknowledge that Leighton from Runway in Geelong is in the room today. We also have La Trobe University. We're supporting accelerators in specific areas like cybersecurity, agriculture, and beyond. Last week, we announced an additional $4.9 million boost to our sector to further develop our ecosystem. It's a really tough decision when you come on board as a new CEO, inherit 300 applications, have a team working around the clock to review all those applications and have to whittle them down to 7. And we appreciate the time that everyone takes in bringing together those applications. For those who are funded, we're really looking forward to working with you, and I'll go through some of them in a moment. But just wanted to say, for those that didn't get funded, we can't thank you enough for your submissions. You can't fund everybody, but you helped us as a new team understand what's going on out there, what the ideas are, and we really look forward to working with you. You're still a very important part of our ecosystem. So how did we come to the decisions about what we funded? Well, ultimately, we paid attention to those organizations that were going to foster incubation and acceleration. We were really interested in how we connect with global networks and leverage the capabilities we've got here. We really wanted to enhance diversity, a cause that's incredibly close to my heart, and we also wanted to support infrastructure in areas where Victoria has a natural advantage. So we announced 7 projects, and the first one was StartMate, and we're absolutely delighted that one of Australia's best accelerators has chosen to open their offices in Melbourne. They're establishing operations here, and we really look forward to welcoming them to our community on a full-time basis. Diversity saw us investing in Girl Geek Academy and Sarah Moran and her team to run She Hacks Victoria, the first statewide all-female hackathon. This is really important, and congratulations to Pause on the diversity in this room. Too often, I'm one of only a few females that show up to various events around the technology and startup ecosystem, and we need to do more. This is endemic across our society. We've got problems about females in executive pay, we've got problems about women in leadership, we've got problems about women in STEM. Let's make sure we don't let this ecosystem have a problem about women in leadership positions. So congratulations to Girl Geek Academy. It's not just gender diversity, though, and we need to think about how we represent other underrepresented groups. One group that we were really taken by was Outcome.Life, an organisation helping international students. These are incredibly important to our economy. We have hundreds, thousands of international students choosing to make Melbourne their home while they undertake their degrees. But all too often they go back home immediately after. Yet these are people who are often very passionate about starting their own businesses. They come from cultures where owning your own business and driving your own business is core business to them. So what can we do to help them stay here and make our community open to international students? So Outcome.Life is creating a hub which is going to be an accelerator for international students. But more importantly, for those of you that might be thinking, how can you help? International students are also doing internships at Victorian startups through Outcome.Hub. So if you think you've got a good role for a student intern, reach out to them. We're also supporting diversity in health, and SEVA is another small Australian organisation, a startup on its own, who's establishing an incubation program to help people with a disability. NDIS is a really important program that's taking place, the National Disability Insurance Scheme in Victoria, and we should be leveraging our assets, and SEVA is helping us do that. But it's not only about getting the entrepreneurs who've got an interest in disability, it's also about encouraging people with a disability, chronic disease, or in their older age, to think about the sorts of tools that they need and encourage them to become entrepreneurial. Right here in Federation Square, we're supporting creative technologies. We're helping ACME, the Australian Academy for the Moving Image, develop their co-working space into an accelerator to help creative tech startups get off the ground and also leverage their amazing facilities at the museum. In education, we're supporting education changemakers to run the inaugural Edupreneur Conference in Melbourne. It's a really important sector for Australia and in particular Victoria. We've got phenomenal universities, phenomenal education systems, and we've also got a phenomenal and budding education tech cohort that's developing. The final project we announced last week was the Frankston Foundry, which is about supporting entrepreneurship in our regions. The Frankston Foundry will run an annual hackathon down the Mornington Peninsula to see what we can do to develop a more entrepreneurial system down there, and also connect it with Melbourne. These projects, along with our first round projects, are detailed on the website, and there's something for anyone who's thinking about getting into a startup. So if you've got an idea and you're not quite sure where to go, make sure you're leveraging the tools and projects that we've invested in at LaunchVic. Go to our website and see what you can do. But there's still lots more to do, and that brings me on to the future of Launch Vic. And at the moment, we're going through a process to ask what can we do to address the market failures that exist in the startup ecosystem. Whereas our first funding round has really reached out to you to say, you tell us what you think needs to be done. And we got lots of ideas, lots of great opportunities that we've learned from, opportunities we've invested in. The question has been about what's your passion and how can we help you with your passion? And we at LaunchVic want to turn that on its head and say, what's the market failure that we need to solve? Because we can't invest in all of you. We've got to do things that are really going to change this sector. So over the past month, we've been consulting with stakeholders across our very broad range of stakeholders, ranging from you guys, the founders, the teams, the people that are engaging in the community every day. Our international scale-ups that have chosen Melbourne as their home, Zendesk, Slack, Square, Hired, and the list goes on. Our education institutions, our local and state governments, investors and community builders, co-working spaces, accelerators, and incubators. The question we've been asking is, what can we do? And we've heard so many interesting things, which I'm going to touch on today, but we want to hear more. If you've got an idea about what LaunchVic can do to help the ecosystem, an ecosystem is different from company, we want to know what we can do to help the ecosystem, let us know. Please visit our website. We're open for consultation. And if you want to go to our website, follow us on Twitter, and everything will be provided on there. But before you provide your bright ideas to us, which we definitely want to hear, you might like to hear what we've been hearing. Well, the first thing is research. And it's really astounded me as someone who's passionate about our research sector, passionate about the opportunities that belie in what is a truly world-class system, but not so great at commercializing, how broadly this is recognized as a problem in our ecosystem. We need to do something to help address this issue. And while our universities are battling to really think about how they can commercialize research, it's clear that people are looking at LaunchVic to help solve this problem. I think it's a really important problem to solve. And as someone who is an electrical engineer by background, who grew up thinking about Silicon Valley in the 1990s, it was all about core technology. It was part of the reason I chose to do electrical engineering. You didn't go to the Valley unless you had deep expertise in microprocessors, computer science, and the like. The barriers to innovation were really high. You needed deep, deep knowledge to be able to create the next widget that was going to go into a telecommunications network to enable fiber to the premise, or microwave technologies that would improve mobile access. But with the advent of the internet, the barriers to innovation dropped. And suddenly you could be a uni student at Harvard saying, wouldn't it be great to have a tool that I could communicate with my peers? And suddenly those peers and that system, Facebook, is a multi-billion-dollar company. Likewise with Airbnb and Uber. And it doesn't take away from the extraordinary elegance of these companies, doesn't take away from the enormity of what these people have achieved. They are truly brilliant examples of what innovation can do. But I think as time goes on, these ideas are going to be harder to come across. A lot of the low-hanging fruit is being taken. So we have to go back into what our deep expertise is. What are we going to do to make sure that we're not just innovating here and now when the barriers to innovate are quite low and people can think of simple ideas and turn them into incredibly successful businesses? Where are we going to be in 10 years' time when those barriers are much higher again? So I think research is a very important piece. A big piece of what we've been doing is helping diversity, and how do we encourage people into the ecosystem? And I don't think we've paid enough attention to how do we help people through the ecosystem. And we're hearing loud and clear that scaling is a very important issue. It's not just about taking an idea from ideation to minimum viable product. It's about taking a company from 10 people to 100 people. And while many of you in the room today might be thinking, I'm on a journey to create a business of 10 people, and that's a really hard thing to do, taking it from 10 to 100 is even harder, and we need to do more to encourage this. One thing that's really struck me is that we talk a lot about the need for more technologists. We talk about the need for more ideas. And it's clear that what we're forgetting along the way is that our ecosystem is far more than technology, creatives, entrepreneurs, and founders. It's the operation people, the finance people, the marketing people, the sales people, the business analysts, the product evangelists. It is for everybody. And as we're talking to scaling companies, what we're hearing very clearly is that they're really struggling to hire the right people. At one end, you've got the founders and the very, if the right word is scrappy, people who are prepared to do anything from clear the dishwasher to create the marketing plan and code at 2:30 in the morning. Corporates are too gentrified. And so as you're scaling, we need a group of people that aren't scrappy and aren't gentrified. We need the middle ground, and there's a shortage of those people. So we as a sector need to be reaching out to our education institutions to get the best and brightest. These may not be people who are in the room today who are prepared to risk their idea on a business, to step out from a safe corporate career. They might be people who are looking at Boston Consulting Group, KPMG, Telstra, and NAB as their future career path. We need to say to them, you are part of our ecosystem, and you have a place, a very important place where we are. It's not just the founders and the teams, though. It's also other aspects of our ecosystem, and one example is investors. We hear lots of people calling out for the need for more money, and this may well be a valid call, but we need to support our community to invest wisely. We have money in this industry. What's more, we have an awful lot of high-risk capital in this country. It's just been directed to the mining sector. And what we have to do is see how we can move money from the mining sector to technology, and that's a very big hurdle. And we have to think and help people to understand the systems and processes and the timeframes that we go through that are radically different from mining. We need stronger angel communities that allow more investments. It's sage advice that was once given to me that the most important thing you can do in investing in starting a startup is getting the right investors on board. The people that are going to sit back and help and support you to grow, the people that aren't going to pull their money at the wrong moment. The wrong investors can damage a company. What's more, we're hearing more and more about investors that are burnt, and perhaps they fall into the friends, family, and fools category, where they're investing in someone that they've been told to invest in They get to go out and invest in one company, that falls over, and then that's it. It's a bad experience. It's the wrong way to encourage investment. We need smart angel investments. So the question is, what can we do to help people take risks and invest? We have money in this country, but we need to invest it wisely. What can we do to make sure the people who are investing do it in the right way, to protect their own income so that they come back and recycle and continue to reinvest and support people to grow, even if that does mean failure along the way? We also need a healthy corporate system. We need to be embedded in the supply chain. Our growth depends on corporates being prepared to take the risk on to purchase products that we're going to create. Corporates are increasingly looking for innovation, whether it's they're attracting entrepreneurial talent, supporting entrepreneurship, or perhaps on the odd occasion looking to acquire startups. But in my experience, there's a whole lot more to do. Before taking on this role at LaunchVic, I ran my own startup, and we had offices in Melbourne, London, New York, and Tel Aviv. Australia was the hardest market to sell into. And while we could open doors and take meetings and meet with people, what we found was that the middle managers who we had to convince to buy our product would actually, the risk of taking that on was really detrimental to their career progression. The idea that they could take on a startup and fail could potentially impact them. So we have to do more to encourage our corporates to be more entrepreneurial. This is really different from the UK and also the US, where a lot of middle managers are now encouraged to cut costs and save, and by doing that, they've got a greater appetite for risk throughout the system. So I think there's some things that we can do there. And then, of course, there's policy. It's not just about the policy within the innovation ecosystem, the things we hear routinely, the visas, the employee share schemes, taxation policy, but it's also about what could we potentially identify to bring to government's attention about how we could create innovation and enable it to flourish. An example is policy settings that have taken place around the world in driverless cars. The states and countries that are allowing testing on driverless cars are naturally creating an ecosystem around that. So what can we do? Have you seen something where there's a policy opportunity? But with all of that, perhaps the most important thing we're hearing is that LaunchVic has got a coordination and marketing role. Our ecosystem is booming, but our parts aren't always connected. It's really hard for newcomers to come in and navigate the system, and a lot of people don't know what's going on, even though they consider themselves a part of the system. I've also been really stunned by the number of people in the ecosystem who can't name startups in Melbourne. One of the questions I've been asking everyone I meet is, who are your top 3 startups? And so many people fail to name companies. Sure, we can talk about Seek and Domain and realestate.com. There are unicorns, they're fantastic. But what about the Culture Amps, the Envatos, the Red Bubbles, the Carbon Revolutions? These are companies that are absolutely gunning it today, and they should be wonderful role models for our sector. So I think there's a piece where we have to have a voice. We have to celebrate what we're doing. We have to tell people our story, because we don't always know what's going on. To this end, we're supporting Georgia Beattie at Startup Victoria to develop a mapping of our ecosystem. And what we know very clearly is that when mappings are taking place, they're not picking up everything that's going on. So we have a call out to you in a moment to help us with collecting that data, and I'll come to that in one moment. I believe passionately in our ecosystem, and I know that our team at LaunchVic, as well as the LaunchVic board, do too. We can truly be an extraordinary ecosystem. We've got all the right ingredients. We just have to mix it together the right way. It's about being world-class, and it's about having a dash of uniqueness. It's about considering how we take the strengths of our ecosystem and leverage us as Melbourne, our unique value proposition. So we're asking, what is that? The things we're hearing is that we've got a really strong grassroots culture. In fact, most people I talk to will admit that Melbourne has got the strongest ecosystem, grassroots culture in the country. We're the most livable city. We have the largest biomedical precinct in the Asia-Pacific region and potentially in the world, only a few kilometers here from Parkville. We're a sporting nation, and that's reflected in the fact that Melbourne's the sporting capital of the world, ranked only behind New York and London for the number of major events. We're also the pension capital of the world. We've got extraordinary super funds that have got some of the largest money in investment. And we've got a position to play in Asia-Pacific. How can we lead this region? What can we do to ensure our best and brightest choose to stay and have the opportunity to grow global companies right here at home? And what can we do to attract the world's best entrepreneurs to come in the same way Silicon Valley, Tel Aviv, London, and New York do successfully? So that brings me to you. And what can you do? Because we can do everything that we can, but we won't get there alone. We need your help. So we have a few asks of you. So first of all, if you've got an idea about what needs to happen to grow our ecosystem, tell us, please let us know. Go to our Twitter feed, our website, and follow the prompts to go through to our consultation. We also ask all of you to amplify our successes. If you hear something fabulous in Melbourne, tell people about what's going on. Together, if we have a united voice about the extraordinary things that are happening right here, right now, we can start to amplify our message that we really are on the way to become a global centre of innovation. An immediate way you can help us is supporting the research we're doing with Startup Victoria. Again, please go to our Twitter feed and you'll see a survey. If you do nothing else today for this ecosystem, go and complete a 5-minute survey to tell us about all the great things that you know that's going on in Victoria. And finally, and one that I have to throw in, is diversity. I think it's really important that we're not only known as a wonderful global startup ecosystem, but one of the things that we do so well in Australia, and in particularly in Melbourne, is diversity. Let's make our system known as the most diverse ecosystem in the world. And that means each and every one of you have got a role in the people you hire, the people you co-found businesses, the people you recommend, the stories you tell, who you hire as contractors. Make sure diversity becomes part of your thought process every single day. We really look forward to working with you at LaunchVic, and thank you very much for listening to me, and I'd be delighted to take some questions or hear some ideas.